everyone, and welcome to the Third Ward Town Hall meeting. This is our first meeting for 2022. Happy New Year to everybody. This meeting is focused on the South Loop, and on January 20th, our next town hall meeting is focused on Bronzeville, Washington Park, and Fuller Park. Tonight we have a number of topics to cover. I want to thank all of the presenters for being here this afternoon, this evening. Very much appreciated. And I see that we have a good crowd from the community. So we will get started with the first item on the agenda, which is a presentation by our commander of the 1st District, Patricia Zuber, who will give us an update on public safety in the South Loop. Before you start, Commander, I just want to say I asked people to send in questions ahead of time about each topic. We did get a couple for you, which I'll read at the end. And we're also going to take questions out of the chat. So if you have, we're not going to be able to take everyone's question, but we will take some questions out of the chat for each of the presenters. Commander Zuber.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Happy New Year to everyone. So for the 1st District, ending December and beginning into January, there's 3 areas that we might see a decline in the 1st District, not necessarily the South Loop, like burglaries, but I don't think we've had any in the South Loop year to date. Motor vehicle thefts is an issue for the 1st District and the South Loop, and theft from vehicles. And the 3rd would be robberies. And again, those we can kind of categorize those a little bit too. I'll talk about the motor vehicle thefts first. Of the 36 year to date, I'm going to say 26 of them, the car was running. So please remember please do not leave your cars running. Even with the automatic start, these offenders are able to remove those cars, even if you have the keys on you. But I can tell you there's a good portion of people, at least 10 of those cars had the keys were in the car when they were taken. So we had reached out in the beginning of December to the food deliveries, DoorDash, Grubhub, I don't remember what the 3rd one's called, or Uber Eats. And Uber Eats is actually headquartered in the 1st District. And we did reach out to all of them to relate to their drivers about not leaving their cars running. So now we are going to target Sergeant Fleming and Sergeant Burns. All the businesses should be receiving a flyer that we can post just to remind people to please secure their cars, park them legally, secure their cars, no matter how quick their errand is, wherever they happen to be going. The other is thefts from vehicle. And we find that sometimes people leave their belongings in the view where people see a purse or a computer or whatever, and the cars get broken into. We see that kind of on the street as well in parking garages. So we're just reminding people, and again, this should come out from our CAPS office and through our business liaison, who has already talked to the parking managers last week, I believe. Just to remind people, please secure your items. Don't leave them in plain view. And then the 3rd was robberies. We can say, and just even year to date, and the percentages pretty much are through December also. More than half of those were on CTA property. We are addressing that with what we can do with 1st District personnel, but also we are in daily contact with Mass Transit, who also has personnel that's assigned to the CTA property. So currently our most of these incidents have occurred at Jackson and State. So that's where we're concentrating the 1st District personnel right now. That's where our resources will go. And we will have somebody there 24/7 through February just so we can see if what we can help there, whether it's just moving people through, if there's maybe people with maybe in crisis, or maybe there's a mental health condition. And then obviously we definitely would like to reduce those robberies. Of those 5, I think we had 2 juveniles in custody. So I have to see how many, if those juveniles are responsible for any other of the robberies. And they were young juveniles. They were like 13 to 15 years old. I have a ton of information. Just don't want to get too bogged down. If there's questions, if there's something I can go into more detail with. I don't know if you want to know about, we do have the shootings from the 1st district. Their most recent was
before you go into the shootings, I want to clarify to put your questions in the Q&A, not the chat. I see 2 things have come up that you have been asked to talk about, Commander. One is the shootings that occurred Saturday, and then there was a question on the number of cars that you said had their cars running out of the 36. Was that 10 or was that 26?
So it was 36 total, and then the cars that were running would be, let's see, cars running 5, 10, 15, 20. 24 of them were running, and of those that were running, 10 of them had the keys in the car. It's just a snapshot for year to date. So, but it kind of carries through that we definitely have seen a lot of food delivery, a lot of quick pickups, CD1 cleaners, Dunkin' Donuts. We've seen more than their fair share.
Okay, can you talk about the shootings now?
So there was one at 22nd in Wabash. It was in about 10 o'clock in the morning. It's a business that was open. They saw somebody on their lot looking through cars. They approached them, and the person was going back to their car to show that that was their car that they had tried to gain entry to. There was a conversation or some sort of argument or discussion, and the second person in the car that they had, the subject had gone back to show his ID, fired at the employee from the business at 22nd and Wabash. Is there a question relative to that one, ma'am?
There was one Saturday night, and I'm seeing that there might have been one today.
There was nobody shot today.
Okay, what about Saturday night at 4?
Well, then Saturday night at about 10 o'clock at night, there were 2 gentlemen. They were traveling from the south side. It was a confusing. It took a few hours to actually kind of get a story. They weren't saying too much, but that they were shot at around 14th Street. There wasn't really a description of an offender. They drove themselves to the hospital. The one victim was struck in the abdomen. He's going to be okay. The other person that was in the car did sustain injuries, but it was the glass. I believe the glass that had impacted him. And let's see. We didn't know initially if there were shots, if an exchange of gunfire. It does not appear that there was an exchange of gunfire. And they appeared to be cooperative, just not very forthcoming.
All right, so Commander, there's a question on the 1st District crime statistics report 56 cars stolen, not 36, as you've said here. Is there an error in the report?
I'll have to see what report they were talking about. Mine was year to date. So I have to see I don't know what report they're referring to.
Okay, and another question here, were the offenders arrested and incarcerated?
There is no offenders that have been identified in either shooting.
Can you discuss the safety at Roosevelt stop and surrounding area?
So with all the CTA locations, not just Roosevelt, we have actually seen more activity at Jackson than at Roosevelt. There is a mass transit team that rotates through Roosevelt. We haven't had too much activity on street level. The parkway that you next to Starbucks, that was a big concern. And the alderman has pointed out, I believe that one has tempered down, whether it's the weather or just people aren't hanging out there anymore. So all the officers that are stopping through or going through any of the mass transit stops, any of the CTA stops, are just trying to make sure that these people are waiting for trains, and if they don't get on a train, that they move along outside of the CTA platform.
Right. There's a question here about, and then I'll get to the two that I received by email, about what's being done to protect the two daycares and one grade school. I think they're talking about Old St. Mary's. Between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., there's a lot of kids being walked to school. They need police presence besides the attempted carjacking last week. It's an example of an uptick in violence in this area. I would like you to respond to that, and then I have something to say about that as well.
So I really have nothing to report about the attempted carjacking because it was never reported to the police. We did have officers there at dismissal, not at arrival, but at dismissal. We've talked, our officers here talked to the principal over there, and they've talked to the security people that Old St. Mary's has on site daily also.
I would like to add to that. There is a paid off-duty police officer at Old St. Mary's every day. And I'm not aware of any uptick in violence in the area. That event that happened last week was unfortunate, but there has not been a level of violence in that area. I have great communications with the principal, and we've answered her calls on many things related to traffic, related to this incident last week, in a timely and effective manner. So I hope that answers your question. 3 more questions, and then we can let you go, Commander. One
Sure.
is that I received in writing was, how many officers are allocated to the 1st District, and is this manpower adequate?
I can say right now that we have, so don't quote me, but I'm going to say we have about 248 or 250.
Is that an adequate amount?
It's what we have to work with, ma'am.
The report that this gentleman's talking about is the CPD report from Comstat through January, looks like 16.
And what was the date of the report? It says, but what was the report run from? Was it the last 28 days or what was it?
It does not say here.
If it's a Comstat report, I'm going to say it's going to be at least a month. Mine was year to date.
Okay, so I guess the second question is that I received in writing were, what new strategies are being deployed to get guns off the streets?
We are deploying our resources to the areas where we're seeing some of the violence. And I know that the 1st District officers alone, just over this past 4 days, we've recovered 5 handguns. And that's just the last 4 days. That's not even what prior to that. And they can tell you they've been all over the district, from Lakeshore Drive to Randolph to South End, Michigan. Okay, and to Matt R., who is asking about
connecting the shootings to businesses on Motor Row. We have not been able to actually tie a particular shooting, and Commander, you might want to address this, tie a particular shooting to a particular business, which is necessary to move on that particular business. We have had meetings at the police station with the First District Police. We've sent business affairs in to check and make sure all the licenses are up to date. We're actually changing some parking down there to prevent cars from just being out there when the businesses are not open. Anything else, Commander?
So we, in addition to all those things that you said, ma'am, is also every time there's a shooting down there that might be tied to one of the business locations, our vice unit is also employed, so they see if they're, and then they go into, and then there's license checks also.
I guess the last question I see here, is there a plan in place to deter the reckless driving that occurs on Wabash, Michigan and State between Roosevelt and Cermak? You and I talked about that, the need to do some missions there.
So we do have Go ahead, ma'am.
I said I haven't seen you do any, but we need to have some missions along.
We do a mission every watch every day. So some are that the First District does, and then we do them in conjunction with the 18th District. So 2 hours would be on our side, 2 hours would be in the 18th District side. So those are based on the crimes that they've seen, the activity, whatever the real-time things that the watch operations lieutenant can see, and then that's where he decides where those missions are going to take place.
I'd like to get some information on when those missions are. I know that your officers asked our office for suggested places where speeding was a problem, and we listed Michigan, Clark. I don't know that we included Wabash. I believe we did include State.
So we got them from your office, and then we also got them from Patrol Division Administration from 35th Street from our headquarters. And then, like I said, then the crimes as they're happening or had happened. So between those three sources, that's how they're generated or how the locations are picked. And then sometimes the mission consists of 2 cars, and sometimes it consists of 4 cars if we can get 2 from us and 2 from 18. So that's what it's going to look like. I don't know. It's not like a roadside safety check. It's a traffic mission that's conducted in a certain area for a certain amount of time.
I'd like to get information, as I said, on when those have occurred, so I can share with the constituents so that they know that something like this is going on.
Every tour, every day.
All right. I have another question, and I think this is the last one we'll take before we move on. What are the 2 to 3 factors which are most keeping police from improving public safety in our area? What can we do as residents to help?
I think the more interaction that we have with each other, and when officers can talk to citizens and citizens can talk to us before a crime happens, before somebody is a victim, it's a much better conversation, so that when something does happen, it's an easier conversation to have. And when you see something, call 911. If you don't recognize a person on your block, or their car has been parked there, or whatever you see that you can give us tips and clues, that those would be beneficial.
The question on chicken and waffles is not a First District question. You can ask that at the Bronzeville Town Hall meeting, which is on the 20th. The question on staffing and security for buildings related to the new Southbridge development, we can take that on at another time. That development isn't even ready to open. Here's the last one, Commander, really. Has the individual who drove the car through the Prairie Avenue cul-de-sac on New Year's Day been identified?
Not that I know of. Sergeant Fleming is working on that. So as soon as, as of yet, I don't believe he is, but I don't know that for certain. I can talk to Sergeant Fleming. He had a family emergency today, so he wasn't available.
Okay, and to that person, our staff has met with CDOT and identified short and long-term solutions to, fix that plaza back up. Jeff Ayersman, who's a resident in the community, is pulling together a meeting of some of the residents in the area, along with the Bill Tyer from the Glessner House, to talk about how to replace the beautiful work that was there in the near future. Commander, thank you so much for your time, and we will move on from this topic. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is we're lucky to have with us our state senator, Senator Maddie Hunter, and she is here to share with us some of the work that she's been doing and leading in Springfield. Senator?
Thank you very much, Alderman. And hello, everyone. Hopefully you all are staying safe from COVID and all the other things that are going on out here in the streets. In terms of public safety, I just wanted to mention that we have a Public Safety Act called Reimagine, and it basically has a lot to do with funding, offering grant monies for gun violence prevention, making it easier for organizations to receive technical assistance and training services to allow them to apply to the assistance directly to the areas of need. It also has a lot to do with focusing on building safer communities, working with the police department to and other law enforcement, the state police, and in some instances the federal, county and federal agencies to better coordinate the services. And I do know that there was and then also to control the number of firearms that are out here on the streets. So that's a big, huge piece of it as well. Another piece dealing with health and human services that I've been working on, and it's already been signed into law, is expanding, it focuses on health and human services. It's one of the pillars of the Black Caucus, where it improves the access to health care, hospital closures, and the hospital closure piece came from when Mercy Hospital was in the process of closing and the intervention that took place with that. Managed care organizations reform, community health worker certification, maternal and infant mortality. Many of those maternal and infant mortality in hospitals are shutting down in some areas. And so we've been putting some things in place to keep them open, offering more dollars towards mental and substance abuse treatment, hospital reform, and medical implicit bias training for physicians and hospital personnel. We've also expanded telehealth services, not only in Chicago, but statewide, and it also has to do with improving access to treatments for those who are homebound and for those without reliable transportation options. And so this measure will make access to medical, mental, and substance abuse use disorder more convenient, as well as improve the quality of life for patients. Now, the Federal CARES Act, those are the federal dollars that came down as a result of the COVID relief. We're looking at 3 areas to see if we can extend the areas that the federal guidelines did not put enough dollars in. And so we're looking at in terms of COVID relief, we're looking at the areas around the city that has a high infection rate and a very low vaccination rate. And so that's one of the areas we're looking at in terms of putting more dollars in. And then we're also looking at either opening up more clinics or giving more dollars to existing clinics to expand their services. Another area that we're looking at is bringing people back to work when safe to do so. And if we do that, then we're considering waiving licensing fees to make things more convenient for small businesses. And we're also looking at to offer tax credits to assist with advertising and creating business districts and assessing levies. And we're really trying to put more dollars in micro and small business by giving grants to those businesses. We're trying to work with DCEO, the state government, to streamline that process for those who are eligible. We know that there weren't enough dollars to go around, or not enough dollars that were appropriated to the cities and the counties and the townships and municipalities. So we're looking at trying to offer more dollars in those areas. And, in terms of streamlining the process, we heard from some businesses where they indicated that the eligibility requirements were too stringent. And as a result, it left out too many small businesses and micro businesses. And so we're looking at that. We're looking at that again to see if we can put more dollars in there. And as we know, safety net hospitals and other hospitals they're tapped out in terms of in need of more nurses and other support personnel throughout their locations, especially with the COVID increase going on. But we're looking at immediately or as soon as possible is allowing the nurses to hire more, allowing the hospitals and medical facilities to hire more nurses from out of state and other areas where they can find them in order to give a break to the hospital personnel as well as other first responders and also allowing them more dollars to hire support staff. Now, all of these hospitals and medical facilities are already given federal dollars, but when we received the Federal CARES Act, what came along with it, with the money, was guidelines in terms of how to spend those dollars. And so we had very tight, stringent guidelines on how to spend those dollars. And so now that we're more than a year into the CARES Act, we're getting feedback from legislators, and we're hearing from our constituents, including the businesses, and we're hearing a lot of problems and issues with the program, although there are some successes as well. And so what we're trying to do is we will be contacting and reaching out to the federal government to see if they can relieve some of those guidelines to allow us to utilize the dollars where the greatest need exists, as well as just trying to see if they would waive the state, because the state has these guidelines too also. And so we're just trying to see how we can get more dollars out there in the community to help relieve some of the issues out here in the streets. I think I'm going to stop right there, Alderman. I don't know if there are any questions.
Yeah, there's a question. There is a question for you, Senator, here. Someone is saying, Senator, the passing of House Bill 3653 for crime is a disaster for victims of crime, as it was passed in the middle of the night with no bill reading. Can you explain all the bill riders were needed and why the bill wasn't properly reviewed? When is an update of what changes are going to be presented to the public? I read it word for word.
You went in and out. You said House Bill or Senate Bill, and what was the bill number again?
It's House Bill 3653.
And it did what now? Because we don't pass any bills without any hearing, so I don't know exactly who that is and what they're talking about.
Yeah, this is an anonymous attendee who said it was passed in the middle of the night with no bill reading. Can you explain all the riders that were needed and why the bill wasn't properly reviewed?
And we review every bill all the time. So like I said, I don't know. Oh, House Bill 3653.
Yes, 3653 is the number here, but then this person comes back and added the policing bill.
I need more information than that because I looked up House Bill 3653 and it's telling me that it never left the Rules Committee. So it's still stuck in Rules Committee, which means that it was never heard in committee. That's what it's saying to me, according to the General Assembly website. So if that person can call my office and give me a little bit more information, I would be more than happy to answer your question. And the number to my office is 312-949-1908, policing bill. I need a little bit more information. If you don't mind giving it to me, I'll be more than happy to answer your question.
Thank you very much, Senator Hunter. We look forward to hearing from you on the 20th at the other town.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Moving right along, we will hear from the Prairie District Apartments, which are located, as we know, is the studio apartments at 1801 South Wabash. And with us, we have Mark Angelini and Edgar Flagg from Mercy Housing.
Thank you. Yep.
Their architect, Mr. Akintande.
Correct. Thank you, Alderman Dowell. And I am Mark Angelini, president of Mercy Housing Lakefront. We are a provider of serviced enriched housing affordable to those with low to moderate incomes. As an organization, we see housing as a means to an end. The ultimate goal we have is that because of our supportive services approach, our residents live stably, independently, and as active members of their communities. We've been in operation for over 35 years. We own 50 properties and serve over 8,000 residents, primarily in Chicago and our Chicago metro area. We're also a property manager, and it was in that role that we became familiar with the studios at 18th and Wabash when we assumed property management of that building about 4 years ago. And in the course of the past 4 years, we, along with the property's current owner, determined that the studios really needed a do-over, a major capital investment, which would include the addition of 1-bedroom units to better serve its target market. So we've developed a new vision for what will be the Prairie District Apartments, and we're here tonight to share that vision with everyone on this call. Last month, Mercy Housing Lakefront was thrilled to be part of Mayor Lightfoot's citywide $1 billion affordable housing investment with a plan that we developed for the Prairie District Apartments in partnership with the city, Alderman Dowell, other public agencies, and capital partners. The Prairie District Apartments will include the full rehab of the existing studios building, as well as a newly constructed addition with family affordable housing units. And again, along with a program of services that will include health and wellness, financial stability and betterment, enhanced employment, and community engagement. And with that, let me turn it over to Edgar Flagg, who's our Regional Director of Real Estate Development, who will also introduce our design construction team and give you a more detailed review of the plans for the Prairie District Apartments. Edgar?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure that our architect, Anthony Akinelli, is, if he could be made to be brought up to be a presenter. If he's not on here, I'm just not seeing him. And if I'm...
Edgar, I asked Brian to promote him. I hope that has happened.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen, if it's okay, with the presentation we put together. Okay, so thanks, Mark, for the introduction and for giving giving the brief, the overview of the project. Everyone, I will just, I'm Edgar Flagg. I'm the Director of Development for Mercy Housing. And I just wanted to introduce some more details of the project, which we were made aware of being awarded tax credits from the city of Chicago last month. And to also then let the architect introduce some of the design concepts and our design proposal that was submitted to the city. So what we're going to talk about today is just based upon what our application was to the city of Chicago, and when we're here to present that. We are we'll talk at the end about our timeline and what will be next steps. The development team, as Mark mentioned, is Mercy Housing. It's our architect, NIA Architects, construction, Ujama Construction, construction management, WB firm, Baso Construction, and then relocation services, WB firm that has worked with Mercy and many other developers and projects that involve relocation and working with tenants. Excuse me. So we're, let me just talk about Prairie District Apartments and the building and unit mix before we get into the design. We're looking at we're looking here for taking the 170 units of existing studios and reconfiguring the site to have 2 buildings with 130 units in total, where it's going to be a mixture of studios, 1 and 2 bedroom units. And this is what we presented to the city for our application. We will have, as it'll be discussed with the architect, the same number of parking with a fewer number of units, same number of parking with a fewer number of units. And the parking will primarily be on the Michigan building. All the units are affordable, serving 60% or less AMI individuals. Some of the units will be serving disabled or homeless or at risk of homeless individuals with services provided to residents. Mercy Housing is the current property manager now, will continue to be that. We have the experience owning and operating in the community, and we've been managing, as Mark mentioned, this property for a few years, and we're also owner of another SRO a few blocks to the north called the South Loop Apartments. Resident and community and public safety is a priority, and we just wanted to just touch upon a couple of things. It's not just this, but one, we see with the new development, parking to be enclosed and secured from right now the open surface lot that is the parking for the existing building. Mercy utilizes a 24-hour front desk or a security staff person, and in almost all of our properties, especially our city properties. And so we expect that to be continued, along with looking at best ways to manage and protect the buildings in the area using the cameras and monitoring systems, along with our basic practices of property management. Mark made a mention of resident services. It's one huge component of Mercy Housing, and we just wanted to share that here. We have a commitment to providing it to all individuals, and we do that with targeting assessments of tenants and delivering the services that they need. And as we come back, we hope to talk more about this project. We'll talk about how we do that in partners and such. But it's a very important aspect of how we do our developments. Now this would be a point I would turn it over to our architect, Anthony, I'm hoping.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can.
Good evening, Alderman, and the Senator and everyone in the line. My name is Anthony Akindele. I am the president of NIA Architects. We local Chicago fund that's been in operation for 26 years. So some of our previous projects might have been known as Woodlawn Station on 63rd and Cottage Grove. We're actually currently working on the South Bridge project, which is right on 23rd and States. I am a resident of Todd Ward, so I'm happy that this is to get awarded and seeing the South Loop being developed as it's still being developed. Our office is located on the West Loop. We see a lot of projects going on up on the West Loop every day, but we hope that South Loop will also be in the same situation as the vacant lots and all those dilapidated buildings develop, and again, there are no more vacant lots in the South Loop area. Again, back in July, we were at talks to do, actually it started as being just the repurposing of the existing studios, which is the one on 18th and Wabash, which currently has about 171 units now. It's going to be repurposed from SRO to one bedrooms and a few other SROs. So we are going to really upgrade the studios as it is shown next. If you can move next to next slide. Go back one. It's just to show the context. The L-shapes is the SRO on Wabash, and to the east side is the Michigan. Excuse me, the Michigan is going to be the new construction. The current existing building, SRO, which is a 6-story building, we have a whole ground floor repurposed with new services, a new community room, and laundry on the ground floor. Then the remaining 5 residential floors are going to be just completely gutted out because, again, these rooms are SROs that are cut into small rooms. So we are going to repurpose them to 1 bedrooms and leave about 10 SROs and 71 bedroom for a total of 80 units on the studios. And then moving over to the current parking space, which is just adjacent east of the alley, is the current parking for this building. We are proposing to enclose the parking on the ground floor. This is not going to be a parking garage. It's just 1 floor level parking and 4 levels of residential. So in terms of massing, we are, again, really not as tall as the current studio. And because of the configuration of the site, access to the parking will still remains along the alley just behind the SRO. There is a curb cut along 18th Street. It is my understanding that we are going to close that curb cut on 18th Street. Next. And we this is how we envision the building to look like in adjacent to existing. The one to the right is the existing SRO, where we are planning on probably upgrading the windows and the infrastructure in the building. And then to the left is the new building, which we designed with some quality materials and in conforming with the existing building adjacent to this one on both the south side of this building and across the street. Next. So again, I just talk about the site. So if you look at the Michigan to the right and Wabash and the alley in the middle, the 1801 is the SRO and 18th and Michigan is the new construction. Again, this is a very narrow lot, and we were able to kind of creatively leave the parking as it is, about 26 parking spaces. And then the building will be set back from the property line on the south side to allow fresh air between the adjacent neighbor and the new one to have fenestrations, to have window. Again, south side is where you get most of your sunlight, and so we're gonna have windows and large fenestrations on the south side of the lot, of the building. Next. So again, this is the ground floor unit of the new construction. You can see on the left side is the access to indoor parking, which is 26 spaces. We are creating some active spaces on the corner of 18th and Michigan with the lobby, the vestibule, and then going down Michigan Avenue is the back storage and the pump room. And then in the back is where we have the mechanical and the electrical and the parking on the inside. If you move to the next one to look at the typical floor. So the typical floor is how we envision this to be 39 one bedrooms and 11 two bedrooms, two baths with just direct access with, again, very nice materials, windows, both east and west, and the north and south we have fenestration. Again, this is initial concept. We're willing to, again, move to the next level and kind of develop this into a much better and, again, into a workable construction. You can see the area on the south, on the below there that says green roof. So we propose to put a green roof over there. Again, we don't, again, it's maybe a roof access, but we don't know. We need to talk, have a conversation with Mercy Housing. If they are, we allow a roof deck on above the garage on the second floor. So that's what we envision this to be designed at. Next.
Anthony, can we not do like every single floor? We have a lot to cover in this meeting.
Okay, no, we don't have every single floor. Yeah, so I'm almost finished. This is the ground floor of the studios as existing. So all this first floor again is going to be repurposed and upgraded into again modern and adequate amenity spaces. And this is the typical floor, what it looks like, what we have created to what we're looking like after the conversion is done. So that is my presentation, and thanks for having us, and we're happy to be on this project.
Okay.
Thank you. I just have one more slide, if I may, Alderman. I just wanted to share with folks one last slide of project timeline. We really have our first meeting with Department of Housing coming up, and as you'll see, we would be working toward a process of reviewing the concept and entering into the zoning process over this spring, summer, and so on. Community and resident engagement is something that we are now with the award and approved for the city, that there is a project to move we want to get forward with. And I want to also thank Jimmy Akintunde with Ujama Construction, our general contractor that helped us also with planning and strategy, is on the call and on the Zoom call here now. And we will be working with him, his firm, and others for identifying and having the local hiring and contracting opportunities. We've in all of our city projects, we've exceeded the city minimums for MBWB and participation, and we look forward to doing that. And that would be all I have.
Thank you very much, Edgar. So, I just want to address these issues head on. So a lot of the questions are in the chat, Mark and Edgar, are related to the target population. Who lives in your buildings now? Are you changing your target audience? Right now, the people who live at 1801 are individuals. With this new building, even though you're reducing the number of units, well, are you now focusing on families? Then there are several questions about drug testing, background checks for residents. How are those background checks performed? And then issues related to security measures that you're going to implement with this development. How do you keep people from loitering in front of the building, which is not an issue at the current building?
Right.
And what impact is this going to have on property values going down?
It won't have any impact on property values going down. We operate throughout the city of Chicago, in some cases for more than 3 decades. And I don't think our properties have been anything other than an asset to the community. We have quite an extensive holding, for example, in Uptown. And we all know the trajectory of the last 20, 25, 30 years has been property values have really kind of soared in Uptown. You know, we do not as an organization equate somebody's income with their propensity from being a problem or predisposed to crime. I mean, our residents are very committed stakeholders. People with low and moderate incomes are very committed, hardworking people who want a chance to be able to enjoy what we all do, which is a chance to live somewhere where they're spending only, let's say, about 1/3 of their income on housing, so that they have the ability to spend and take care of their families and spend accordingly to deal with food, education, clothing, etc. So we don't make any apologies for the fact that residents are going to be of lower income. We find that our residents are excellent stakeholders of the community. To my knowledge, the studios has never had a problem with crime or issues arising from residents at the property. I think, as Edgar has pointed out, we take very seriously and employ a strategy of controlled entry, having a manned desk like any apartment building of quality in the city, as well as, again, a very robust program of services. We do background checks and financial checks for all our residents. We do not do drug testing and have not found that to be an issue that has posed any problems with regards to who lives at our property. We have very stable tenancy. I would say that on average, our residents are with us 5 to 7 years. We are very serious and hold residents accountable for what they're obligated to do per the terms of a lease. So we do have house rules. We do manage the properties closely. There are expectations of our residents, and we have found that our residents are very happy to live at our properties. They are very high quality in terms of not only their external, but their internal finishes. And there are very, very few opportunities to be able to access that and still have an affordable rent, particularly for those that are making more moderate incomes. Felix Matlock, our Vice President of Resident Services, is also with us and would be happy to have him just make some additional comments. By the way, to that issue of loitering, we prevent that by basically having a presence on that first floor and are very focused on making sure that doesn't happen. Again, I don't think that has been a problem in the current studios, and I don't think it will be in the Prairie District apartments. Felix?
Right. You know, Mark, I would just add that we have a very robust services staff, made up of skilled and highly skilled and trained, case managers and sometimes service coordinators who are assessing at the very beginning when persons move into our housing, and then periodically through the year, a time or two, do an assessment of them to ensure that the needs that were identified are in fact reflected in a services plan that is then followed up by either providing services directly or through collaborations with community partners through a third party, relationship. And again, I must say it's very robust, very active. We don't encourage our residents to loiter. Residents who have issues, that could present a problem internally in the community as well as externally, they are identified and worked with, to make sure that those issues don't spill into either the internal or the external community. persons that were previously homeless that are living in our properties, pass through coordinated entry, which is a part of the Chicago continuum of care. And it gives us, as they come to us and, they're screened, it gives us an opportunity to understand what some of the presenting, conditions were, prior to their, to their entering our homes. And, and it gives us a chance to really design a services strategy to meet those historical needs. And as Mark and Edgar indicated, very much focused on health and wellness, making sure that we're connected to health partners, helping people become good, good partners within the community through community engagement, and then helping them with their financial stability, through accessing services that will either improve their employment or help them become employed and become, contributing members to society. Again.
Okay, so we have a couple of other questions here. First of all, there are a couple of residents who agree with the point about this building being a good building, a good neighbor now. Never any loitering here. Bravo to this organization, blah, 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 blah. I will also add my co-sign on that. This building has never been a problem. I always hold a Super Bowl party there every year since I was elected. And the residents are warm, friendly, and thankful for having that party. So there's a lot of good people in this building, and I look forward to Mark working with Mercy House Housing on this project. There are some other questions though. One is, do you hold residents accountable?
Yes.
One is, how come there isn't an opportunity for ground floor commercial?
The main reason is because we really look to provide in our ground floors a space that can really be conducive to bringing in the various programs of services that we just talked about. Now every case is a little bit different. One of the things that may evolve at the Prairie District Apartments is the possibility of a health-related provider that could be available not only to our residents, but to the broader community. We tend to not put in anything that's related to commercial retail or restaurants. We really try to use the space, and we have found, and again, we've been around for 35 years and we own more than 50 properties. We have found that the approach we take, where we're putting in a space that is primarily dedicated to bringing in an array of services, works the best. We do also want to make sure that that space, to the greatest degree possible, can be contributing to other needs in the community. But we have not found it to be helpful to do anything other than that with our space. So no restaurants, no commercial retail is typically part of our program.
Okay, another question was, you didn't answer the question, are you moving away from individuals, from serving individuals? Will you be serving families at this location?
Yes. Yeah, as you saw from our mix of apartments, unit types, we are going to be adding some ones and twos. So we will be skewing a little bit towards something that doesn't exist right now, which is family units in a 1 and 2 bedroom. Edgar, I think that probably would mean families anywhere from 2 to maybe 4 individuals in a household.
That would be correct for a 2-bedroom. So the new construction building, the 50 unit, that's more the family building, and then the existing building that'll stay more toward the mission and purpose, just with the reconfiguration of units.
And also to the question, Alderman, that you posed, we do hold our residents accountable. There is a lease that's signed. There are house rules that are very clearly stipulated. We do work to make sure that people, stay stably housed. And again, I think we have an approach that we call blended management, which takes into account both property management as well as resident services. But certainly, we'll work with people. We try very hard to anticipate problems that may arise that may cause a family or a resident to have difficulties making their rent payments. And we will, engage them actively to get them to a point where they're able to catch up and stay in the property. As I say, we have very stable tenancy, and clearly, but we will move people out that are not living up to either being, regular payees of their rent on a monthly basis, or if they really are habitually running into an inability to follow by house rules. We also hold residents accountable for their guests, and that's part of the reason we found a desk entry is very conducive to that. Residents have to come down and greet their guests. We don't allow any kind of long extended stays. We know our residents very well. And ultimately what happens is that, again, we provide something that is extremely rare, which is a high quality building available to people that make low to moderate incomes. Believe me, they treasure that ability to live in a property like that. And overwhelmingly, we find that our residents are not only great community assets, but they're very much holding each other accountable to make sure that the quality and the atmosphere that exists at the beginning and the opening of a Mercy Housing Lakefront property continues throughout its operations. We stay close to our properties.
Mark.
Yeah.
You just going, you made your point. You're just going on a little long.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just saying too that you know where we live, and we're always easily available if there's any problems.
All right. Two more questions. Are you going to have the same kind of security welcoming desk that you have in the new building like you have in the old? Let me see. Are you displacing any current Thorough residents to do this building? And are you helping them with relocation?
Yes, everybody will be helped who's in the property as it comes back on. We will also probably not release units after a certain point, so that if individuals just move on from the property, we probably will not release that unit so that we minimize, any complications with people not being able to stay. So our goal is to help relocate anybody who's not able to stay at the property. And again, that we will pay for cost of relocation. We will also do temporary rehousing for anybody who's in an existing unit that has to move out temporarily while it's being rehabbed.
All right, just two more and then we'll close this. One resident is asking about the potential problems that could be caused by teenagers moving into the building with their family.
Again, we have a yeah, I mean, we'll see who ends up, living in the property. We don't know, who's going to be applying, but we do have experience in family housing of children of all ages. And as we understand that mix, obviously will also impact the kind of programming that we do. So if there are teenagers there, we understand what the needs are, and we'll work with the family and those teenagers to be supported appropriately. But we can't predetermine that.
Okay, and last, Mr. Akintande, who is the general contractor on this project, there was a question that came up about jobs. Who gets to work on this project?
Alderman, we're going to be very active and very intentional. Just like Edgar started the conversation saying, Mercy Housing have a very robust diversity program to make sure that the community and local businesses, minority and women businesses participate on this project. We'll be very intentional about reaching out to your office, to advocacy groups within the community to make sure that we have plenty of residents. We've been in the business 20 years. We've done plenty of projects on the south side, on the west side. It's one of the things that we like to believe is a hallmark of our construction practice, is making sure the community participates in the construction process.
Okay, thank you. Mark, in closing, the question I did see, I didn't give you, are ex-offenders a part of this program?
They're not automatically not. I mean, we allow for, again, everyone goes through a background check. There are certain convictions and timeliness of the convictions that might disqualify somebody But Felix, what is our typical? I think it's if you're 3 years past the initial
Right.
conviction, we'll look into it. But we
Right.
do take that seriously, but we don't automatically discount somebody who has a conviction. And again, we've been very successful in leasing the properties to people with a variety of backgrounds that have become very, very good tenants.
Okay. So Edgar and Mark and Anthony and Jimmy, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation this evening. Please come back to us to give us updates as you move forward with the Department of Planning and Development and Housing. Also, Felix, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Yes,
we'll
we're happy to do that, and also happy anytime there are issues that come through your office, Alderman. We're happy to talk to and reach out to anybody.
Yeah, I know where you live. I'm looking at my cell phone. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman.
Our next presentation is on the city budget. We have with us our budget director, Susie. Susie, I know this has been a long night for you. So if you could just give us the highlights of the 2022 budget. And then we have one other item on the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Dowell. I do have a quick, just a 5-6 slide presentation. If I could share my screen. We'll do that. Okay. So last October, under the leadership of Chairman Dowell, we did pass the 2022 budget, which is now in effect. Overall, the city's budget is about $16.66 billion. This is a $4 billion increase from the previous year. Most of that is being driven by our grant funding, which is now, as you see here, is the largest source of funding for the city. A lot of that is due to the American Rescue Plan funds that we received, as well as some of the other carryover that we had with CARES funding and other federal funding that we received. Overall, how we approach the 2022 budget and our investment strategies, really looking at it through investing to build a better Chicago by increasing safety and various opportunities. A lot of this is feedback that we received through a very robust community engagement that we did prior to presenting the budget. And a lot of it is what we heard from various communities all over the city about where we should be focusing dollars and investments. So what you see here is, the 3 pillars of kind of how we approach the 2022 budget is, thriving and safe communities. We heard about funding for keeping neighborhoods safe as one of the highest priorities, as well as other things you see here, affordable housing, opportunities for youth, assisting families. We also really focus on equitable economic recovery. How do we continue to come out of this pandemic in various ways? We know that different areas of the city were impacted in all areas. So, really focusing here, as well as continuing to provide essential government services. What does the city need to do? We ask a lot of our residents and communities, where can we improve? How do we make sure everyone knows about the different services that we're providing? Overall, what you'll find in the 2022 budget, which is inclusive of the American Rescue Plan funds that we received, is about $1.9 billion worth of various investments. And I won't go through each of these boxes, but you see here that there are great investments across many areas, all of which we heard from all of our communities are really important to continue to fund and invest in throughout the city. The other thing I did want to bring up very quickly is property tax. There was a small increase in the property tax in the 2022 budget. This chart shows here, specific to the 3rd Ward, what that average increase will be. The property tax that was passed in the 2022 budget will be effective in 2023, so you will not see it this year. For an average home, which in the 3rd Ward is about $235,000, it is about $2.91 a month, and with the average increase is a little shy of $35. This will again be in effect in 2023. The other thing I did want to really address, and part of all of the discussion here today before me is really, what are some of the investments we're making in public safety? So, talking with CPD at the beginning of this meeting, their budget is $1.9 billion for 2022. We continue to provide various resources for CPD, but we're also looking at it from other fronts as well. There is about $135 million direct for violence prevention. This includes community outreach, community safety coordination center, which is something that the city is working through, and how do we coordinate all the various violence prevention initiatives. Youth violence, youth diversion, as well as victim services are all examples of direct violence prevention dollars. In addition, part of that, the investments that I showed earlier includes about $400 million, all which are also addressing other root causes of violence. So this includes increased dollars for affordable housing, youth programming, mental health, small business and workforce support, and community development, to just name a few as examples. So with that, that's a very brief overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'll turn it back to Chairman Dell.
Thank you, Budget Director. I see a couple of questions in the chat. One is from a constituent who says the budget category should be discussed in plain English. What is general financing? What is that, and how is it helping our communities?
So general financing is the portion of our budget that is really citywide costs. So our pension, our debt service costs, those are all included in general financing. And as you see, it's one of the largest categories. But thank you for that feedback. There is opportunity for, in future budgets for us to clarify that a little bit better.
Okay, I don't know that this is for you, but ShotSpotter didn't come up being part of the budget discussion. I know you're busy with the remap right now. I think this is directed to me, but when will the contract be up for discussion again? I was upset to see that they do not do any testing for false positives in the absence of data. It seems ShotSpotter is wasting money and putting lives at risk. You want to take a stab at that, or I can answer that?
So I don't really know about the end goals and or the end of that contract and when that's up for discussion. Right. I don't know, Chairman.
So there was a hearing on that. The chairman of the Public Safety Committee has said that he's going to do another hearing. I think that there's arguments on both sides of the data that some people feel that ShotSpotter is necessary and is not wasting money and actually save lives. And there's a contingent that feels the opposite. We won't be getting in the back and forth on that tonight, but please continue to look out for potential hearings, public meetings on that topic. Another question. What assessment is undertaken to determine whether the violence prevention expenditures are going to be effective?
That's a great question. I think a lot of the investments that you saw on the slide, there are going to be outcomes related to each one of those investments. So it's really, what is that return? Are we seeing those? And, we will continue to report on those. Part of the reporting that we're going to do for Treasury, as well as to the public and to City Council, is really to talk about what are some of the metrics that we're putting around these investments and reporting that, to the public to make sure that, we are showing if they are effective or not, and to really have that conversation. So, I agree with that feedback, and that is something that we're looking to do.
And Susie, this is not just for violence prevention expenditures. I recall that many of the expenditures, you have outcome measures that you have to show the federal government.
Yes.
The spending of the, what is it called? The American Recovery Program money?
Yes, so all of the funding that we did receive, especially around the ARP, does require reporting. And we do have metrics and outcomes based for each of those, and that is something we're going to be reporting publicly. I can share with Chairman Dell, but we are coming out with a website where all of that will be public for everyone, and we can continue to talk about that as the year progresses.
All right, another question here is, how will you cut the budget $4 billion next year when the grant money's gone?
So the grant money does go through, so the American Rescue Plan dollars specifically goes through 2024. And then we have until 2026 to actually spend those funds. So it's not going away all next year, but that is a great question. It's absolutely something we talked a lot about during budget, and understanding that this is a one-time investment. This is not meant to add burden to our residents, but really, the crux behind the American Rescue Plan dollars and all these grant dollars is really recovery from the pandemic. So we're very much keeping that in mind. This is a 3 to 5 year investment, but knowing that, that this is one-time funding. And so we will absolutely watch that and monitor that as we progress through those dollars.
Another question here. Where can small businesses receive information on grants available to run community programs?
So like I said, a lot of the stuff that we're going to do, especially using the American Rescue Plan dollars, are going onto a website. And so, one of the things that we are doing is trying to be more transparent about all of the different programs that are coming out, whether it's for small business. If you're a nonprofit and you wanted to bid on something, on some of these dollars to provide the service, we're trying to make all of those things accessible to the public. And this also includes any jobs that we're creating using these dollars will also go up on this website. So I will share that with Chairman Dowell, and we can get that out to everybody. But we will be putting those online to make sure that everyone has access to that.
And we do have information to this constituent in the Alderman's office. If you want to email me at ward03@cityofchicago.org, I can tell you about some of the existing grant programs run out of departments like the Business Affairs and Consumer Protection related to the COVID crises. So we can do that. Two more, Director, and then I think I'll let you go. With less anticipated federal funds in the coming years and with downtown office vacancies, will Chicago seek more direct federal investment in public goods or other better and more sustainable forms of revenue, such as an income tax that doesn't incentivize privatization of infrastructure and public spaces? A lot in that question. But,
there is. So just unpacking that a little, we're always looking for sustainable forms of revenue, and definitely working with all levels of government on how do we maximize that. There is, additionally, you may have heard that, with the passing of the infrastructure plan, there's also additional federal funding coming specifically around infrastructure, and that's something we're very much looking at to see, how do we maximize there also to help continue to build on the city's infrastructure. So more to come there, but that's a great question, and it is something that we continue to look at.
All right, and then lastly, are there any grants out there for veterans that you happen to know off the top of your head? I would have to do some reconnaissance on that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very great question, and that's something I would need to look into and ask, and then I could definitely get back to you, Chairman Dowell, to see if there's information I can
to the
share.
constituent that asked that, it's the same person who asked the small business question about grants. If you would reach out to me, I will try to get the information back to you about places you can look for some support. Susie, I just want to say to you publicly that I've enjoyed working with you. I think that you are, just when I think of a good public servant, a professional, someone who's really worked hard on these budgets and is accessible to the aldermen and to the community, I think of you, and I just want to acknowledge that publicly. People don't know how hard you work.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much enjoy working with you. And, really, my goal and what we've been trying to do is be more transparent and to really bring everyone along in the budget process. I know it's not always exciting, but, anytime we can share information and answer questions, we're happy to do that. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this today.
Thank you. And to the constituent who just asked about the Back to Business grant program that you applied in August, I don't know the answer to your question. I can look into that, ask you to send me an email at ward03@cityofchicago.org. I'll put it in, I'll just put it in the chat here, and send me an email and we'll get back to you. on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our last presentation is from a group that is bringing a recreational cannabis facility to 2114 South Wabash. Just from the outset, so you know, the alderman's role in this is very, very limited. All of the decisions are really made by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And this is an opportunity for you to hear about this new initiative. And with that, I'll turn it over to Janae Moreno.
Thank you, Alderman. New microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alderman, for having us here today. Before I start, I want to make sure that our team has an opportunity to be presenters, as I will have them present their key areas. So the two team members is Sequan Golar, who is our security specialist, and Jamie Magaluf. I think they're in the attendees, if they can be brought on board as well. I will also say I have with me today Brian Zizes, who is going to help me with a quick presentation. Alderman, I'm going to try to be brief in our presentation to leave time for questions. I know this has been a very long meeting, and so I may not do every single one of the slides. I want to kind of jump into the nitty-gritty. Let me say, Alderman, yes, this process at this point is really a decision-making piece with the Zoning Board of Appeals, but our belief is that you as aldermen and community residents are the ultimate decision makers, and therefore we want to make sure that we continue, regardless of who makes the final decision, continue to work with you, your office, and this community close at hand to ensure that should we get the approval to move forward from the ZBA, it is an approval for the community, to the community, and with the community. We are.
Ms. Moreno, excuse me. Brian, can you promote Sequan Golar? And was there another person?
Yeah, I see Sequan as a presenter now.
Right,
I'm here.
Right. Okay, awesome. And so I will go real brief on kind of the team, right? This is one of the social equity licenses that was awarded. I know we've heard a lot about social equity licenses. Senator Maddie Hunter, who's part of the Black Caucus. I'm glad to see you here. So you are seeing a little bit of the result of a lot of heartaches and headaches that that I'm sure you participated in, and make sure that the social equity program coming out of the state of Illinois was one that was fruitful. The social equity licensees are Loretta and Priscilla Foster, who are both here with us. And Loretta is a Navy veteran, and Priscilla is also a social service person. Both of them has had many years of service to our communities in social service, as well as an honorable veteran. Both of them are also Southsiders, not necessarily in your ward, but they do live in the South, on the South side of Chicago. Again, with us is a number of our team, but because we're short on time, I'm going to ask each of our team members to introduce themselves when they come on, when I bring them on. But I have Brian Zizes, who is a principal of D33. We will be utilizing D33 management to copycat what they've done over the years. They've had very good success with their entree and experience in management. And they are one of few of the dispensaries that made sure, even in the medical marijuana pilot project, which they had a license, in that process, before anything was talked about social equity, that they behaved in that manner without even being asked to, because they believe in in making sure that women, people of color are participatory in this process and in this industry. We have Jamie Magaliff, who's an architect, and she'll talk a little bit about her company and the work she's done in developing both of the sites for D33, and Sikwan Golar with Rescue 8, who is our security expert consultant as well as hopefully vendor provider. I myself have been in the affordable housing field policy as well as training and technical assistance. And of recent, I have also been doing a lot of work with community development as well as continue to do a lot of work around affordable housing and housing preservation. Next slide. So what I'm going to do is kind of move us to the next, the kind of the community values that we want to copycat and emulate that we've seen through the Dispensary 33 management who were working close at hand to move forward. This is a company that has always done strong compassionate care programs, has had strong support of social justice institution like Casa Norte, who focuses on affordable housing and extending people help through education. Chicago Community Bond Fund, who provide free bond services for those that may have gotten incarcerated. The Westside Justice Center, Father's Family and Healthy Community, and the Firehouse Community Arts Center. All of these programs really focus on at-risk people and at-risk children, youth, and families. And we really are very proud that over 2021, we were able to award to these groups over $260,000 for their work. Our employee values. These jobs that is created within the retail space of the business, as well as some of the other executive employees, are jobs that are what we want to call living wage jobs that we try to make sure that people get paid good salaries for the work that they're doing, but also they get paid good salaries because we give strong training, and we believe that hopefully if they don't stay and grow with the company, they also have opportunities to grow in other spaces. And so we make sure that our employee values the people, and not only the transactional piece, but also the people piece, so that they can grow in their careers as well. This is just a piece that shows our accolades that have been given to the Dispensary 33 management and company for their work and how they have really stepped up to the plate and become a committed and excellent in design, as well as a good neighbor in the communities that they're in. To 2114 South Wabash, let me see what the next slide is. We're looking to, actually at this point, I'd like to see, is Jamie in, or is it gonna be Brian? Can you talk a little bit more about the site and the proposed development?
Yeah, Jamie's here.
Okay, great.
I can talk through this. So we can see our building, 2114 South Wabash.
Jamie, can you
Yep.
turn your video on? I like my constituents that they're on with.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, it's a little dark, but we see.
Sorry about that. It's my home office. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Magaloff. I'll just introduce myself quickly. I have a sole proprietor firm called Steep Architecture Studio. I've been working on my own for about 2.5 years, but I've been working with the D33 team for the last 7 years. So we've developed a really good working relationship, and you know, it's easy to develop these floor plans to fit their workflow. So Brian, if you could go to the next slide. So this is a site plan of our building. So on the top, you can see the building itself. It's a 6,000 square foot, single story masonry and frame commercial building. To the south, there is a parking lot. Zoning doesn't require us to provide parking. However, we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. So we'll be providing 23 parking spaces. 2 of them will be accessible. We'll also have bike parking within this lot, and the lot itself will be enclosed by a gate. There will be operable doors on the gate for security purposes. So when the dispensary is closed, that gate will be locked. We've got an on-site trash enclosure that butts up to the back alley for ease of trash disposal and things like that. So that's our site plan. If we can go to the next slide. So within the building itself, I'll walk you through kind of the three security areas that we have. We will be leaving a small portion of the front building as not in scope, with the hopes of attracting another, possibly complementary tenant in the future for the community. But essentially dispensaries are divided up into 3 zones. The blue zone you see on the top right is the waiting room. So people will enter off the streets. They'll have their IDs checked. If they need to sit and wait for a moment for the sales floor to open up, there's seating available for them. Then they'll pass into the green zone, which is limited access. So the only people allowed in there are people that are over 21 years of age. They'll pass through a corridor. The existing building has 3 restrooms available for each gender. So we'll be reusing those. And then you'll move into the main sales floor space. We'll have, various floor and wall displays, a large point of sale counter, and essentially the way Dispensary 33 likes to operate is we keep our customers moving in a linear and station-based fashion. So they'll enter, they'll view, all the items on the sales floor. When they're ready to make their purchase, they'll go to the POS counter. They'll then move to the pickup counter to actually pick up their product. And then they'll exit out the exit vestibule, which is along the south wall of the space. And this will exit into the enclosed parking area. So it gives people a little bit more privacy when they exit. And then they'll turn east, walk down that sidewalk. There'll be another entry gate, and that will lead them back out to the public sidewalk. So it gives them a little bit of privacy as they're exiting, or, they're able to exit and immediately get in their car without going back to the public sidewalk. And then lastly, in the purple space, this is restricted access. Only dispensary agents are allowed back here. So we've got our delivery happening off the back alley, so it doesn't interfere with traffic on Wabash. And then, this is product intake, break room, office space, vault, all of those sorts of things. And I think we can hand it over to someone.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'll have Saquon speak and then we'll take questions. But, one of the things that we always want to make sure is that whatever the hours of operations are, it's really something that we look again to the aldermen, the merchant association. We really want to fit the culture of the community. And so we don't just create arbitrarily hours of operation. We try to match what exists within that community and that business corridor. So Saquon, can you talk a bit about the security plan, what your company looks to, and how you would propose to build security around this property? And I don't know, Saquon, if you were online earlier, but you heard the police commander give a lot of information and report about the issue of security and activities. So again, if you can be as thorough as possible.
Yes, can everybody hear me on this? My name is Saquon Golar. I'm the CEO of Rescue 8. I have been with Dispensary 33 in over about 5 years now, working with their dispensaries. Some of my major players are like Salvation Army, Croc Center. What we are, I like to say we're more than just a security company. We offer a wide variety of training to the community. We also offer emergency medical services and life-saving skills to the community. and also just became like one of the first security companies to go live with Narcan training for drug overdoses. So I just want to give a little bit of history about what I do. I have over 20 years in fire, 20 years in EMS, and over 17 years in security and law enforcement now. And what we would do at this building is we will model this building off what we currently have now with Dispensary 33 and other sites that we have. We will secure every exit. So basically what we are running day to day with one of the D33 sites. We will model off them. We run 3 guards, a shift up there to make sure that access control and parking is moving very quickly, and also minimizing any type of, and then what we're establishing a premise outside. And when I say a premise outside, is making sure that our guards are present outside to minimize any type of crime or to deter any type of crime. We will also meet with any type of local and local law enforcement, which I heard the commander did. He talked about briefly about different types of crimes that were in the area. So what we will try to do is try to see how can we fit in to deter any type of crime or panhandling around this facility. And then we also work with the state police. The state police, of course, have monitoring inside the facility also. At that point, we will do all what we need to do to, like we monitor off D33. Right now, we don't have the crime in front of any D33 facility is low. We have no reports. Our guards is out there every day. Even when we were doing even with civil arrests, we had an action plan doing civil arrests for every dispensary that I was working with Brian and everybody else with, and every client that I was working with. We had a plan to actually go out there and make sure that these facilities were safe. If not, I'll open up to Q&A questions right now for myself.
Thank you.
Why don't we finish the presentation and we'll take all the questions together.
Okay.
Sure.
So, Alderman, what I will tell you is right now our processing timeline is most of it right now is in front of the ZBA. We've given our application for special use permit. Because of the property that we're using, we do not need to go before City Council, but of course look to community and yourself to support us with the ZPA and moving forward. To get such a support, of course, we want to hear from the community your concerns, and as well as your hope and aspiration for such a business to be in your community. Once we have, the go-ahead, permitting, building, and licensing, we're ambitious in thinking about 3 to 6 additional months, but as we know, COVID has slowed down a lot of stuff, so we hope to move forward as quickly as possible. One last thing I want to add before we go into questions is that one of the key things that we're focused on, and of course, we don't want to jump the gun too much, but one of the things that we're focused on is really working with your office as well as community groups to begin talking about how do we make sure that we create a pool of people that would be ready to work at the dispensary, so that as we begin to look for employees in the community, we would have a good pool of people that have experience or knowledge and are interested in working in the industry. And so we hope to tap into some of the job training programs that I've worked with in your ward, as well as exist in the larger city of Chicago, to try to really tap into a pool of people that are looking for work and would look to work in this industry.
All right, thank you, Janae. I have not actually decided. I'm still pulling information in from my constituents on the project, so I don't know where I am on this yet, but here are the questions. Can you please describe the lawsuit that you're speaking of?
I'm going to ask Brian to talk a bit about the lawsuit.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Alderman, for having us. I'm Brian Zaisis. I'm one of the principals of Dispensary 33 and providing technical assistance to Janae and the Green and Foster team. So there's a number of lawsuits that are challenging the legality and constitutionality of the states issuing the licenses that were announced through the lottery, and there is no timeline to when those licenses or when those lawsuits are going to get cleared up. Some people think that it'll happen in a month. Some people think that the whole law may be scrapped and that it'll get sent back to the legislature and they'll have to rewrite a law and start from the beginning. So we really have no idea. The ZBA has allowed the people who were winners in the lottery to move forward and to be prepared to move forward. But nothing can move forward until the lawsuits are resolved, and there's no timeline that I've heard of, quick or slow, to when and how.
Brian, for those that are on the call that may not know what's the premise of the lawsuit, can you give a one sentence on it?
Whether there was a preferential treatment to veterans is one of the main issues, because only veteran owned companies won, and you can't set aside a specific license for a specific preference of people, as type segment of people. It has to be open to and there's also a second issue of whether whether some of the scoring constituted a preference for people living within the state, which would be in violation of the Commerce Clause, I guess. I'm not a lawyer, and for people who were trying to apply out of state. So, but again, I'm not a lawyer on these fronts.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm just going to go down the questions as I see it. Isn't this location across the street from a daycare? Not to mention many nearby schools, NTA, Southwood Elementary, etc.
Jamie, do you want to talk about the setbacks?
I can speak to them. The dispensary currently meets setback requirements from schools. I believe it's just primary schools. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But that's something that we researched with our real estate team early in the process as we were looking for locations. So this meets all of the state and city requirements for setbacks, which are really only applicable to primary schools and I believe other dispensaries.
I think it's any school, but this meets all the setbacks.
And it's 1,500 feet. So, Southwood Elementary.
No, it's only 500 feet from a school. 500 feet from a school, 1,500 feet from an existing dispensary.
You're correct. So, as you can see, the distance from the dispensary to the Southwood Elementary is more than 500 feet and more than 500 feet from NTA. All right. Next question. So basically she's saying none of these individuals have experience with running a dispensary. Question.
So what I will tell you is that the social equity licensees, Loretta Foster and Priscilla Foster, that's correct. And myself, we do not have any experience running a dispensary. And this is the reason that through the program that the state required, it's that we would work with or have our own experience. And so in search of someone who has experience, Dispensary 33, again, we like what they do, how they do what they do, and their team. And so therefore we're working with Dispensary 33 management to stand up any dispensary site that we're looking to open up a shop.
Another question, if this dispensary plan passes for implementation in our ward, how would the generated revenue be reinvested back into the community?
We would follow suit, right? There is, and again, I've worked in the ward. I myself is a South Sider as well, and we would work with community groups and institutions. We know of some programs that are already standing, and that we would hope to be able to support those programs over the years. But really looking to work with programs that's actually really reaching families of needs, people of need, and give back to the community in that way. I know, again, I know there are some programs through the school. My eldest daughter is was a Chicago public school administrator. And I know many times that the schools, individual schools, need special services or special resources so that they can provide special programs for their students, be it music program, art program. So we would look to really do some deep reach. Of course, again, looking to the aldermans and the Merchant Association and what they've done, and try to, again, stay within the culture of how these kind of give back to the community opportunities have occurred.
Great. Next question. What is the zoning dispensary distance required for a CTA station and bars?
There aren't any specific zoning setback requirements or, distance requirements for CTA stations or bars. The only law that exists with, dispensaries and adjacent uses is with schools and other dispensaries.
Okay. Are the owners of this dispensary African-American?
I will say yes. Again, we didn't know how to get everyone on the team on, but both Loretta Foster and Priscilla Foster are part of the attendee group. So if you allow, they can jump on and say hello to everyone. But yes, both Loretta and Priscilla are people of color.
Brian, if you can promote them, the Foster sisters. The proposed location is very near an area that can really be a hotbed of crime. Cermak and Wabash, Cermak and Michigan, etc. Why do you believe this is a good location for your business?
Well, more on the technical end of stuff, I would like Brian and Jamie to answer that. But on more of a larger community piece. This is a business district. We feel that it is a good business district, and that we would bring a benefit to that space and area that can, again, strengthen that area and that community. And in listening to the police commander's report, it didn't scare me. It even made me feel that much stronger about really wanting to open there. What we offer is not only the ability to secure a site right now that, you do have some people hanging out, you do have this empty property that's not in full use, you have this beautiful building that can be elevated, and as well as this parking area. What we know and what we've always been told is the more foot traffic, the safer it is. And what we bring to that foot traffic is also all of these cameras connected to the state police, and definitely would work with the local police district to ensure that the movement and management of people is something that happens in a safe and secure way. Jamie and Brian?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, architecturally adding on to what Janae said, this building will be very, very heavily secure. It'll have an extensive security system. There will be cameras all around the parking lot and the perimeter of the building. So that in itself, I think, will generate more security in the area.
Is that me?
No, I think that Jamie may have some technical problem, but I can just say that, the police district up on Clark Street has used our camera feed to help solve, crimes and asked us for footage, and we have
Also, I think this.
and we have a very good relationship with the police department up on the Clark Street area.
So Brian, I would ask that you guys make an appointment to meet with Sergeant Carol Burns of the 1st District about how you plan to place your cameras, situate them outside to see if there's anything that they might be asking for that you could help them with.
Sure, happy to do that.
All right. Next question. Go ahead, Saquon, Mr. Golar.
I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback. And Alderman, I just want to say that we were very instrumental. And because one thing, we work in a lot of high crime areas. We work in down in Inglewood. We work in Harvey areas, some of our high crime areas. And we set up a plan where we work with the local police department. And we set up the camera systems where we can give feedback to the local police departments right on site. And we also have a rapid deployment team. If anything was to happen, like fire panhandlings, where we provide a more higher presence that we normally will do.
Well, I don't consider this like, well, I hear what you're saying, but do you do the same thing with you have a West Loop operation, correct?
Correct, and we do the same thing with them too, Alderman. If they,
no matter where you are located, they work with the police.
And we provide a high presence.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Yeah, here's the next one. Is D33 the operator? Didn't they just sell out all their sites to larger outside entities?
Our operation, the operating entity is us. Those 2 locations that are Dispensary 33 will be getting sold, but this location will not be branded Dispensary 33 and is not a part of any of that sale. The operations team is going to stay on after the sale of the current ones, and is going to be able to bring its expertise to the Green and Foster team.
All right, to the constituent that talked about the closing so late, we definitely don't have to have that conversation with this team. I'm also in agreement that an earlier closing is better, so we will continue to have that conversation with them. Another question, are you opening or open to a job training? Are you opening your job training to potential new employees?
So we ourselves will not be doing job training. We hope to work with job training programs. Some that I know that exist in your ward and others that are citywide. So we hope to connect with them and talk about kind of what kind of employees we're looking for, what is the requirements that would be needed, and then how do we begin to prepare people now to get them in the pipeline.
Given that Chicago hotels have said no to cannabis and public buildings like the convention center don't allow the use of cannabis, are you willing to limit sales to Illinois residents?
No, I think the city should pass the consumption ordinance so that our tourists have a place to consume legally.
See that happening anytime soon, but let's keep moving. Will you be hiring off-duty Chicago police officers to be at your door during operating hours?
Saquon, can you talk a bit about who you hire and kind of your training?
So again, my name is Saquon Golar. I'm sorry about that. So what we do is we hire people from the community and we train them up. We surpass the 20-hour and 40-hour security. And when we say surpass, we train our officers in many different things like patrol aspects. We train them in actually Narcan training for drug overdoses, advanced CPR first aid training. So they surpass the actual state 40-hour training. And they also go through the cannabis, what cannabis laws is too. Also too, if we also have off-duty police officers on staff too. Those off-duty police officers will be outside because police officers cannot be inside a dispensary with firearms. So they can be hired for like offside the crowd control and things like that, which we actually have hired in the past. But mainly what we do is we use people from the community that we train up to a part to actually protect the dispensaries.
Okay, we've had two people basically say, yay, you're glad that you're coming. Have you spoken to the owners of the daycare up the street and heard their concerns?
No, we haven't.
Marie, I'm sorry, Janae, could you?
No worries.
Well, I can send you that information. If you could reach out to them, that would be appreciated.
That would be great. And anyone else that you think we need to do outreach to, Alderman, please feel free to
Yeah, it
share
would
that
be
information.
basically the school and the Near South Planning Board.
And we did have a meeting with the Near South Planning Board prior to this meeting.
All right. And I see the Foster sisters, Loretta Foster. I see. I open up the floor to you if you want to say anything.
No, I think they have covered everything so far, unless you have anything specific for me.
Well, the question was if there was African-American ownership in this.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Alderman, for the opportunity to present today.
Okay. All right, so we do have a couple of people who are saying that this is not something they could support. I would ask my constituents to please email me and let me know. Don't just say you support it or you don't support it. Tell me why you support or don't support, and give me a reason to give consideration to a yes or no answer. So I want to thank the team here for their presentation tonight. When's the ZBA? Do you know the ZBA schedule?
We have not submitted the final package to the ZBA. We were waiting for feedback, and as you know, we had our community meeting on Friday that just passed, which is required for the package as well.
Okay. Oh, the other Foster sister is here too. I didn't see you. Hello, Priscilla Foster.
Hello, Alderman. I thank you earlier for the opportunity.
Okay, I'm just seeing the both of you on the screen, so that was why that was the delay. So I want to thank you all for giving a presentation tonight. I want to thank all of the constituents for showing up. You can always reach me at ward03@cityofchicago.org. I urge everyone who has not been vaccinated to seek your COVID-19 vaccination and get boosted. We have lots of locations within the ward for testing and vaccination. Please reach out. I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Thank you again for coming, and good night, everyone.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman. You guys have a nice one.
You too.